So,
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
yep.
Can you hear me? Okay.
And then, do you guys want the water bottles in the frame, or
Uh,
it's totally up to you?
no, I'll put them down on the side.
Cool. And then, obviously the laptop is there, but like it's not like
Not
blocking
too
you
bad.
guys. Yeah.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm rolling, so feel free to do your thing.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Let me get a timer out real quick. My phone's gonna die. All right. Welcome back to the Marcus Milione podcast. It has been a pretty long time since we last recorded, unfortunately. And I figure there's no better time than the present to pick it back up. Shawn and I have kind of the rundown of the episode on the computer here. I just want to make sure that it doesn't die or go to sleep. All right. So, where do we even begin? I kind of figured we'd go over some big picture updates and what's been going on in our lives with Minted New York and Minted Health. And our training as well. I don't know if we talked about the fact that we signed up for the New York City Marathon in any of the episodes before this. I know we had some interviews, and then the last real update, I think, was in February. So, yeah, if we hadn't talked about it, we are training for a marathon. We're 9 weeks in, and we will get to our experience doing that here toward probably the end after the big stuff with the businesses.
Yeah. I kind of like these because every, few months that we do them, it's nice to kind of circle back and see all of the stuff that has been completed or stuff that hasn't been completed. Just kind of not only keeps us accountable, but also is just kind of like what did we think we were going to do, 3-4 months ago and what actually happened. So doing these is kind of like a good little goal to look back on.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest kind of milestones that we have completed over the last couple of months, and especially this year, is that we secured a warehouse for Minted New York and Minted Health. So we store actually both products in the same location. Obviously makes the most sense from a shipping standpoint. But before then, as I talked about before, we were storing everything in a mixture of my parents' basement, my parents' garage, and we had this kind of dinky little storage unit in the city. I think was like maybe 75 to 100 square feet.
We still have it. We keep
yeah.
some of the pre-workout in there whenever we can ship it out of the storage unit and not go to the warehouse. We do that, but for the most part, does not get much use.
Yeah, I mean, so the biggest issue with the warehouse, right? Like one of the biggest issues is that we don't have cars, and it's in Jersey. So we have to take Ubers to the warehouse when we want to get to it. And sometimes when we have releases or product in stock and, big fulfillment of pre-workouts, we are taking that Uber every single day, and that cost adds up exponentially. Now, I know that the first train of thought is, well, take public transportation. The issue with doing so is that it's about an hour and a half time difference. So there is really no direct way to the warehouse in Jersey from where we live in Manhattan, plus even on the Jersey side to the warehouse in Jersey. Public transportation is not, very readily available. There's either a lot of transfers or a lot of walking involved. And majority of the time we either have boxes that we are carrying back and forth or, different supplies for the warehouse. But the time difference is, like I said, about an hour and a half each way. So 3 hours round trip, 2.5, 3 hours by public transport, or about 20, 25 minutes total round trip by Uber. So for the sake of saving everybody's time, we've just been doing the whole Uber thing. And I think that down the road, if we continue like this, it makes sense to just, get a cheap, very used car and pay for monthly garage parking, because I know that it'll be cheaper. I don't have the exact numbers, but I know that it will be cheaper. So that's something we need to figure out going forward. And, unfortunately for Shawn, he catches a lot of the kind of like time sink of getting caught in traffic and stuff, because I'm not in the warehouse every single day. And he is more often than I am when we're not in the middle of releases.
Yeah. Luckily, it's just all about timing. Like trying to leave the city and go to the warehouse in the afternoon is a disaster because you catch all the traffic. So, if we time it well, it's not too bad, and it actually is a pretty short Uber ride there. But if you're, get stuck with something, some emails or anything in the morning, you're losing potentially an hour of extra time in the car, and you're also paying the Uber price, like surge. So it's just a whole debacle. But Marcus and I we talked to my mom, I think it was a week ago, and you just think the easy answer is to get the car, and after it's all said and done, like it'll just be a better option. But then she was like, you can't forget about insurance for the car, you can't forget about maintenance of the car, you can't forget how hard it is to get gas in Manhattan, the price of gas, all of that stuff, which is just one of those things where I haven't thought about having a car since I moved to New York City. So all of those things you kind of forget about. So really need to put down the numbers and figure out, how much are we actually saving, which I do believe we'll definitely save. Just I don't know how much.
Mm-hmm. On top of it all, I mean, you just have higher wear and tear driving in the city, right? Like, especially around wintertime with all the salt that's used, like all of that really puts a toll on the car. And who knows, like, I don't even know where I would take a car to get repairs done if something happened in the city. I'd probably go to Brooklyn or New Jersey. I don't even know if there's places, in New York City outside of like, I see the Mercedes service center, but not going there.
It's one of those things you don't think about it because you don't have a car. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Shawn was talking about how we were talking to our mom about it. Recently, my mom and my dad, actually, it was last weekend, right?
Yeah.
2 weekends ago.
That was last weekend.
Last weekend, they brought up the remaining boxes of stuff that we had left in the garage to the warehouse. And it was actually their first time seeing the warehouse. And it's kind of funny because the warehouse was the messiest that it had ever really been. We'd been kind of like getting stuff in and dealing with sorting stuff out, but we hadn't taken a full day to just clean everything up and put it where it's going to be for the release that we just had on the 24th of August. So everything was just everywhere. But my mom and dad came in and saw the warehouse, and I think it was kind of a bit of a surreal moment for me and maybe for them, because I think that was more of it kind of solidifies in their mind that it's a real operation, right? Like, I guess, when you view it from, we're packing and shipping orders and we're talking to them about all of this stuff, it's still very much to them who were born in the 60s, like they're just, money is being generated on the internet and kind of out of thin air, seemingly. But when you enter the warehouse and you see how much stuff is in there and all the product that we were still in the midst of setting up, so all the product that would eventually be moved onto customers, it looks like a real operation. I remember my dad even saying like, "Oh, this is a real operation. It's a real operation now." And in my head, it's like, yeah, what do you think we've been working on for this entire year?
Yeah, and like we showed them the warehouse over FaceTime. Like they know exactly what the warehouse looked like, but it's like as soon as you get in there, and I think it was just kind of not overwhelming, but they realize how much stuff is needed to like do everything from day to day. Like you typically the customer, anybody who's not really like in the brand, you have like the product, and that's about it in the shipping materials. But there's just a ton more stuff that you need to have to, in order to maintain like the warehouse and just generally. So it is overwhelming, and I think my mom, was just looking at it and wanted to clean it all up, but we know where everything is, and that's the important part.
Yeah, I don't. Since we put everything together and bring in all the product and break it down, we know where everything is in the warehouse. But to my mom, who just came in, pretty much off the street, to her it looks like complete chaos, and there's no rhyme or reason for things being anywhere or organization. That's not the case. It's just not everything is labeled so that an outsider who is walking in for the first time would understand where everything is. You have to spend some time and really just kind of spend time setting it up, and then you'll figure out the workflow. Which brings me into kind of like the optimal workflow of the warehouse, which I still don't think we have 100% figured out. The most unfortunate part about our space right now is that there's one in and one out, meaning that if you think about a warehouse from just as a rectangle, right? Generally, there's two doors, like a receiving and a shipping, so that stuff comes in, goes down the line, and then goes out the other side. And that's makes life a lot easier. We only have one door, so stuff comes in, we push it, all around the warehouse, pack up, and then it goes out that same door, which can create bottlenecks and also creates issues with placement of packing tables, because the packing tables are very big, and the pallet racking, which I'll get to in a second, is also extremely big. And pallets aren't necessarily small, so you kind of have to maneuver in and out and figure out, make sure there's always enough space for your pallets to get by the pallet racks and the tables. And if you don't have enough space on all of the pallet racks for the stuff you're bringing in, like we don't majority of the time, then you need to make sure there's plenty of space to store the pallets as pallets, but not take up all the room that's needed for the other pallets to get through. It's like a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, what I learned is like in order for it to get better, it has to get so much worse. Like it gets so messy because you have to break stuff down, you have to move it to a new location, you have cardboard everywhere, you have the wrapping, saran wrap or whatever it is that comes on the pallets, you have all of this miscellaneous junk that's just trash that is all over the warehouse. And so it's like one pallet at a time, break it down while all these other pallets are sitting kind of in the loading area, which there's a time crunch for that because other people are in the warehouse and need to use that area. So it's just a little bit stressful, but you try to just think of it beforehand so that you put the stuff in a place that makes sense. Whereas I think in the beginning, we would get stuff and we just throw it in the bed, like whatever was open, which then requires us later down the road to move everything and kind of reset up the warehouse, which is kind of a waste of time.
Yeah, I mean, we had really no idea going into it. I remember when we first got the warehouse, I even made a YouTube video of like, look how big it is. I remember walking in and there was nothing in there. It was like this vast space. And when it was so big that at one point I thought we were going to put like a couch in there and have like a little seating area. And then product starts to come in. And since we're growing the way we're growing, you are multiplying your manufacturing, by order of magnitude, and then those shipments start to come in, and you realize, well, I got to figure out the best way to store this. And in the beginning, we were storing everything on the floor, right? Which is like the first thing you learn in warehousing 101 is that like go up with this stuff. And we don't have super high ceilings. I think our ceilings are like 10 feet. So our pallet racks aren't even that high. But that's where we learned about pallet racking and figuring out that we can just go up with the space. But then we had to get pallet racks, right? And pallet racks, we got 2 from Uline. And Uline's been a great company to work with. It's still to this day where we get all of our boxes from. But kind of a bit naive and kind of a bit under the gun to get storage. So we got new pallet racks. The smart move, which is what we did for the majority of our racks, was we bought used. Fortunate enough that in Jersey there was I got connected to a lady who resells pallet racks that are used in the pharmaceutical industry. Pharmaceutical industry pallet racks are not put through the ringer as they are in other industries, so extremely clean, very, very small amount of rust, if anything. So we got, high quality racks at probably a 60% no, not 60, like a 30% discount as opposed to buying new. So that was, a big cost savings there, but it was still expensive. I think, all in all, we spent close to 20 grand on pallet racking alone, which is just an expense I didn't foresee coming. And that's just kind of how it is. You're learning as you go, and there is no blueprint on how to do anything or run a business or run a warehouse, or, you either got to ask experts or figure it out yourself. And half the time we're up against the wall with timing. So
Yeah, and then the pallet racking comes in, and it's like, it doesn't come assembled. So it's in the warehouse, and we're like, okay, the solution is here, sitting in the warehouse to like free up space. But like, we don't know what the solution is to like move everything that we already have. And like, we had tons of pallets that we were using just to like get stuff off the ground and like go up. And like, it was just one of those things where we had these pallets, but it took us several weeks before like every one of them was up, because logistically it just isn't as easy as just putting them up, and there's tons of room for them because they're huge and they take up a lot of space.
yeah, I mean, even before the pallet racks got delivered, Shawn and I went back and forth a couple times with like a blueprint layout of a floor plan, figuring out like what size racking to get and how to maximize not only the amount of racks we could get in there, but also make sure that there was still enough room to maneuver stuff around, like I was talking earlier, instead of just willy-nilly just throwing racks in there and getting whatever, what you think is the biggest size. You have to make sure that there's still enough room to move around and still enough room to work. And what's the optimal way to go about that? You don't really know unless you kind of you try to map it out for the most part. And that's where kind of the single door issue is something that we're just kind of dealing with at the moment.
Yeah. And also, like, speaking on just space and lack of it, a huge thing I also didn't realize, and I don't think Marcus did either, was, you get a ton of boxes for the release, and they all come on a pallet and they're flat. But like, you'll never be able to pinpoint exactly how many units are going to be put into those boxes, because, you buy single boxes for like one hoodie, for example, but some people buy two hoodies, so they just need another size box. So that single size isn't being used, which leaves leftovers, which then there's an excess of cardboard everywhere. So just having all of that cardboard is also one of those things we never foresaw coming, which is now just in the back of the warehouse, and we're trying to get through it. But it has to make sense, because box sizing, as I'm sure Marcus can explain more, is expensive. Like, it can make or break a lot of profit margins.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's not going to make or break profit margins, but you don't want to be eating into. You don't want to have unnecessary costs. Like, if you can use a smaller box and it ultimately saves $3 in shipping, then obviously you use the smaller box and make sure everything fits. Obviously, like the biggest thing you don't want is a ton of air in a box. If you're shipping on on like a cubic rate, which a lot of the time we are with the USPS. And generally I try to just keep it to figure out the products that are releasing and figure out the boxes that will, house the product safely and not have that much air in the box. And then sometimes, it doesn't really matter. Sometimes pricing is by weight. And when you have stuff like, mesh shorts, it's not very heavy. Sometimes the mesh shorts with the box weigh about a pound. So you have some flexibility with the size box you can use. But you have to figure out all of that stuff beforehand. And I think that's one of those things where a lot of times people aren't thinking about that. And I know that a lot of companies and a lot of brands outsource their fulfillment to a third-party logistics company, which is, all fine and good. They'll take care of that for you. But if you are trying to do the fulfillment yourself because you think you can do it faster, which is, I guess, in our case, kind of the train of thought, you have to work on all of this stuff. And so that's kind of one of those small things that if you didn't know about it, you wouldn't be taking it into account. Plus, like, just in day-to-day operation, it's something I have to figure out. And it's like all of that stuff adds up, and as a kind of like not a time suck, but it's just time I can't be doing other things. So we've got the warehouse, we've got it all set up. It's as set up as it's gonna be until we maybe move out. So our biggest issue right now is I think we've outgrown the space. All of the pallet racks aren't fully utilized, but it's not enough space left on those pallet racks where we could bring in even one full shipment of stuff for a release. Like, I mean, it's just like small ends of pallet racks, which brings us to the issue of, do we get a new warehouse? The pros of the warehouse we have now is just proximity to where we're living, since there is no full-time warehouse worker, and to get more space in the area that we're in now is just super expensive. So if we go a little bit deeper into Jersey, it will be not exponentially cheaper, but cheaper. And I think that would probably have to be the play. It just makes either our commute longer, or we're going to have to figure out hiring and how to go about that. And that's a whole nother can of worms.
Hiring is tougher than we ever thought, I think.
Yeah. I mean, we had this further down the list, hiring, but I guess we can talk about it now since we brought it up. I mean, Shawn and I bring in help for the releases, just like part-time. And we have Jonathan, who we've talked about before, or I have on TikTok. He's a beast. He's a workhorse. He's been great, right? And he's been with us for 3 drops. And then we have Peyton, who has now been with us for 2. He's he's the guy, if you watch any of my TikToks, that films our time trial stuff, or the time trial stuff on YouTube. That's how we got connected. And then, he offered to work if we needed help, obviously, getting paid. And that's been a godsend.
That's huge.
Because Shawn and I have tried multiple times to hire off Indeed and have extended invitations to work, or I guess, invitations to work to maybe 8 people now in total, including like Jonathan.
Or, I mean, if you combine all the, like, just this last release alone, I interviewed 4 people. And by interview, I mean call them on the phone and just tell them what we're going to be doing. Like, it's not, I don't ask them, hard questions. I don't, it's none of that. I say, hey, this is fast paced. You're on your feet all day. But, I like to think that it's a good environment. It's fun. And, like, we play music and we just crank out orders. And 4 times they said, all right, I'm in. Like, and I'm like, okay, great. So
Shawn and I are excited. We're like, oh, great. More
I come
help.
out of my
That's
room
great.
and I'm like, their name. I'm like, I think they're gonna be the one. They're gonna be the one that helps out. They're gonna follow through and, like, come to the warehouse. So I have 4 people lined up, and I'm like, oh, we're gonna have so many workers. It's gonna make this thing go faster. We could maybe bang out all the orders in one day. 4 extra hands. That's 2 times the people we already have, and we got them done in less than 36 hours. Us. So, hopefully that's how it works. But one person, confirmed at 10 p.m. and then the next morning blocked my number. Like,
That's
just
crazy.
blocked me. Like, I texted him. I said, hey, let me know if you have any issues getting here. Like, she has my phone number. And she blocked my number, but I have no idea why. And then the other 2 people just didn't respond to me. One of them confirmed, and then they went radio silent, and then another confirmed, and I texted them again, like, hey, the day before, I was like, this is a go. Like, let me know. Just need the final answer. And then they ghosted me. So,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know that it's obviously not a full-time position, and we're essentially just looking for part-time work for right now. But it's frustrating in a sense because you want to be able to, count on people and rely on people to help out. And it's obviously paid. And I even made sure in the ads to pay well above regular warehouse work, like the going rate. So I thought that would be good enough to get candidates that want to work it. But it is what it is. We're still figuring out the hiring process.
yeah. And I always try to see it from their angle, and I can totally understand that, like, maybe they were hoping for like a part-time gig that could potentially go full-time, and if we only need them for 3 days, it might not be worth it to them. The thing is just like, that's totally fine if they just communicated that with me.
Yeah.
But it's just like not saying anything. It just kind of, it burns us a little bit because I'm on Indeed at 10 p.m. responding to candidates that I like put on hold because I thought we had enough people. And that's not fair to them because they have, a short time frame to figure out their logistics of their days. And yeah, it's just a mess.
But anyway, we got the release done, and that was very exciting. That puts us at 3 releases for the year so far. I know, for most, I feel like for most businesses that's like, okay, yeah, that's not that many, but for us, that's good. I mean, I'm extremely proud of what we've been able to accomplish so far this year. And the stuff that we've put out. I think that one of the, probably it's obviously my fault, but I show products on social media and on TikTok extremely early in the process. When I pretty much from sketch, and it's not the community or the viewer's fault wanting that product, fast, right after sketch. If it's a good product and they're interested, great, I love that. But there's a huge time period from sketch to final product, sampling, everything that goes into it, and that's something we're trying to speed up, but sometimes you can't rush certain things. You can get a sample back that you thought was going to be, green light, go into production, and then there's, one small thing wrong, but you still have to resample it before giving the okay. It can't just be like, okay, fix this one little issue and then we'll go into production. It's fix the issue. I want to see it again. I want to feel it, move with it, and, put it to the test to make sure it doesn't mess up anything else before going into production, just for the sake of not blowing cash on production of an item and then having it not be able to be released because it's not up to standard. Yeah, I mean, it happened with the first iteration of mesh shorts. I'm an idiot. I learned from that experience. I produced a couple thousand mesh shorts in maroon and black and made a change in the mesh shorts before I made a change in the mesh shorts and then green lighted production without seeing the change. And then they got delivered, and I was like, I will not release these, and I'm going to eat this cost because they don't fit right. And I remember it was like, I remember telling Shawn, and he was like, what the fuck? Like, this is so stupid. And I was like, yeah, well, we can't release them. So they literally just sit in the back of the warehouse. No idea what I'm going to do.
Never have to do laundry. We just wear the rejected shorts.
Yeah.
For the rest of our lives.
I don't know. They're just sitting there. Maybe we should probably donate them or something, I would imagine. Anyway, learning experience. I don't know if I've talked about that one before, but we We are continuing to increase production by huge multiples each time, right? Obviously, I've stated before, no investors, kind of just rolling profits back into more product in the new runs. So the ramp up time is slower than if we had $1 million investment from an outside firm. We could ramp up production much faster. But when you do that, you not only give up some control over the decision making, but now you are kind of playing in the whole VC space of what's the timeline that we can exit that we can either sell the company or take the company public so that we can get a return on our invested capital. And that, I think, kills a lot of consumer brands because then they just start thinking about like, we got to go as big as possible all the time, chase the multiple, and then try to exit for the investors. And there's that investor pressure. And we haven't taken investment, but I can't rule it out. But if it ever does come time that we have to go that route, I am going to make it very clear that if we're going to continue to grow as we are growing and not get bullied. And I get that you want a return on your investment, but we're going to do this the right way, always. Similar to the mesh shorts.
The investors will get a pair of mesh shorts.
Yeah, they can have a pair of mesh shorts as a trophy. So the other thing I wanted to address was sellout frustration. I get it. Shawn gets it. Shawn sees it probably a lot more than I do. I get it a lot through DMs and, a sprinkling of emails. Shawn's, I looked at the support inbox the other day, and I'm not usually in it all that much. But, he's inundated with restock requests, I guess is what I would call them.
It's like restock requests or, I think, saying we had the hoodie buffer restock. A lot of people now think that we have these buffer items that we can just, sell on the side, which would be nice. But, you have to keep those buffer items for what they're there for, which is messed up orders. We can make mistakes on our end when shipping, accidentally ship the wrong product, defects, that sort of thing. Yeah,
sometimes.
Exchanges, all those things. Like we don't keep those items really to make a profit. It's more so to make sure the customer has a solution if something we did was incorrect.
Yeah, things happen. You also can't just list every single product that you have down to the one, because you'll just run into so many issues. It'll cause so many headaches. It's always good to have a buffer there. It's a great feeling to sell out as we do. I down the road, as production continues to expand, I don't think it'll be as much of an issue. It's just right now, we are struggling to meet that demand, and that's, like I said, an incredible problem to have, and it's a testament to the strength of the brand and everything. But there's not a whole lot we can do about it. We could do, I guess, less products. We could have just done mesh shorts and then increased production on just mesh shorts. But it's you got to try to expand product lines and not just offer a single item. I don't know.
The thing I always think about is that if we had all this product that we had an abundance of inventory, that takes up space in the warehouse, and it's we would then need to definitely expand and get a bigger warehouse, because having all that product in there and you can't really rearrange anything if there's stuff there. That's a huge space thing too.
Yeah, the space we can handle we can handle the space, but yeah, we're trying. We're doing our best.
It's not on purpose.
If you look at our first ever hoodie release, the embroidered hoodies that I released out of my apartment, I packed and shipped those in my bedroom with boxes, taping everything in my bedroom. Had a little whatever those plastic folding tables set up in the kitchen, putting them in the boxes, like shipping everything out. It still was able to handwrite thank you notes at that time to where we are now. Like we are expanding production, even though it might not look like it from a sellout standpoint. But trust. I'm trying to get everybody to be able to have what they want. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I do think you're definitely doing like a good job of it because, the last hoodie drop, although it did sell out and like it sold out relatively quickly, I think a lot more people got the hoodie than, you might realize. It obviously sucks when somebody can't get a hoodie, and that's, why we're ramping up production. But I think just knowing on our end, like more people definitely got this hoodie. It's nice, but I mean, I get the frustration.
I saw someone sell a hoodie for $210 on Grailed.
It's double what we're.
That's over double.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But I haven't seen a whole lot of reselling on Grailed. I mean, obviously there are a good amount of listings that have sold, but it's been over almost 20 months now. So it's not. I don't think. And we do monitor orders. It doesn't look like anybody is just buying to resell. For the most part, I haven't run into a single name where I'm like, okay, I think that might be a reseller.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I get a bunch of emails where it's like, hey, this doesn't fit, and instead of returning it, like, I'd like to actually just like list it, and hopefully somebody else could get it, and I'll list it at retail.
Yeah,
and I'm like, those people, I'm like, wow, like, power to you, because like even me, it's hard to be like, I might as well list it for $10 higher and at least cover like shipping and all of that stuff. But yeah, I think the community just generally understands there's this demand, and like they want people to also have the product, which is cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, I was dealing with an email, Jacob. I don't know if you listen to this. Okay, and he was like, I got these shorts. They're a little bit too small, but I still want someone from the community to have them. Can you just gift them to somebody else who they'll fit? I don't even need a refund. And I was like, holy shit, that's actually insane from a community standpoint, because it's like, community members who don't even know each other, attempting or trying to take care of one another and make sure people that want the product get the product. And I just, I was dealing with that email last night, and it was just kind of surreal and felt really good to know that that's how the products are treated, or people in the community are trying to help each other out in that way. It's just kind of like a full circle moment, because I remember giving away an original embroidered Minted New York hoodie the first time we released, and it's kind of like to see community members now giving them to each other is crazy. I did want to get into some kind of like issues, I guess, or like pain points in the stuff we've been dealing with this year specifically. I guess the amount of stress around releases is insane. I always end up extremely run down, a mixture of lack of sleep, getting up even earlier than I'm used to, and I think just always having a million things to do, especially like small things that are just pulling me in different directions. One of the things that frustrates me the most is that I lose around releases. I lose like almost 2-ish weeks of pushing new product forward, just because there's so many minute details of things to get ready that you don't even think of for the most part. And it's extremely frustrating. It's something that I've been thinking of a lot since the June release of those Run Club hoodies, of how can I delegate either more tasks to Shawn or find a better system for making it so that there's like just not so much on my plate that I'm just like run into the ground. I don't mind being run into the ground, but like I need to be able to continue to push future product forward. That losing that 2-ish weeks is not ideal.
Yeah. I think, you like all the different processes of the company, but at some point, it's not going to be feasible to like do all of them, especially during a drop. So yeah, I think it's just learning about like, I know I would have trouble with this, but like, how you want to do it, and like explaining to somebody how to do it, believe it or not, like takes a lot of time. Like trying to explain something, trying to teach something about like the ins and outs that seems so easy to somebody who like has been doing it, it takes a lot of time. So, in those weeks prior to a drop, you don't have this time. So it's like even more of pressure. Like, are you in your head? You're like, do I even want to like try to like explain all of this stuff? Like, it's not worth it right now. Like, I'll just do it. But in reality, if you never do it, then it's just gonna come up and like it's gonna bite you in the butt because you have a million things and you just can't do them all.
Yeah, that's something I really struggle with, and I think is like something I need to just put a process in place where I can start to offload stuff to you, because like you just said, you're extremely competent, but it doesn't really matter how competent you are, because it's like you'll be learning the process the first time, and you're not going to get it immediately off the bat and be doing it exactly right. Like it like anything, it just takes practice, and that's totally normal. But when we're crunched for time like that, I'm always just like, I'm just literally going to do it myself because I know exactly how it needs to be done. And like the added time of like having you make mistakes, which is going to happen, on top of learning and teaching you what to do, is just like, it's not efficient use of time in that time crunch. So it needs to be done when we're not, pressed for time trying to get stuff released, which I guess is the solution. I just came up with the solution on the air.
Yeah, which is also a whole thing, because like after a drop, like the last thing you want to do is like be like, oh yeah, by the way, like we
got to run through all this shit again.
What we were struggling with last drop. Let's like talk about it now, and like let's talk about exactly like, no, you don't want to do that. You just want to be like, let's get everything back in order and slow down, and then before you know it,
yeah,
there's another drop.
Not only is it like slow down, get everything back in order, get our feet under us, but it's also, all right, now we got 1,500 emails of customer support requests that we're kind of trying to do and deal with, and it's like, now what?
Yeah,
when am I going to teach you this? Like and then I'm off and running, working on all the products that we are coming out with down the road and trying to catch up for the 2 weeks that I missed. So it's like Shawn home handling customer service stuff. I'm either like deep in trying to like get new stuff pushed forward, or like meeting with manufacturers here in the city. It's just, yeah, there's just a million things going on.
But it's good that we recognize it, and hopefully even if it's one task that I can start handling the next drop, like that's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Unless like 5 other tasks were added, and then in that case something has to happen.
Yeah, and then it circles back to the hiring thing. Like at some point we'll probably have to bring somebody else on, like as an ops person doing operation stuff. I don't know. Like every single book or like article or post that I've read about hiring at a startup is like the first couple hires are the most important. So not only does that hire have to be able to wear multiple hats, but they got to be extremely competent and hungry and passionate about the business. And how you go about finding that, not 100% sure. But I guess we'll cross that bridge when it comes.
Yeah.
Another big milestone for us was we met with a global shoe brand to talk about a collaboration. We were up at the headquarters for 2 days. It was a crazy experience. Like we were sitting in the boardroom with all of the future model sneakers and past model sneakers, and just meeting with like, important people at the company to talk about doing both a lifestyle shoe and a running shoe collaboration. And it's just weird to be sitting in those seats as like the people being brought into the company, right? Because I mean, I'm 27, Sean's 24, and like 25, and you're just so like junior. I mean, I guess technically age-wise, you're just junior, right?
Like, I
you're
just
there for
feel
your
so,
ideas.
like such like a, you know, Marks and I, like when we are just living together, like we just still feel like not kids, but like we joke around, like we just, I don't know. And then it's like, you know, obviously you flip the switch and you can be very serious, but it's just weird.
Yeah, I mean, we like Clay flew in. Clay's a sophomore in college. Like the funniest thing, I remember sitting there. We're in the boardroom. I'm sitting there. We're talking to all of these important people, and I look to my right, and it's like Clay, who is a sophomore or is going into his junior year of college, and we had just previously talked about how, you know, most people that he's in school with are trying to get internships and like at different, you know, fashion brands and stuff like that. And here he is, you know, meeting with all of these people from this company, you know, freely pitching ideas, giving his input. And it kind of makes me like proud of the whole process, because it's like, it feels good to be able to offer that to somebody. You know, I think he's an extremely bright kid, and I don't know how many other places you'd be able to come in and be as young as he is and talking to the people he was talking to, and being able to, you know, throw your weight around and give ideas, and, you know, have those ideas actually mean something. Because most people, especially in fashion, like graduate from college, you go and start working, I guess, design or product or whatever, and, you know, I don't think people at your own company aren't even taking you serious.
Yeah,
So
it's like one of those things where it's like you have a design, you're terrified to present it to whoever your boss is, because like, I don't know, you're fresh at the company, you present it to them, they have to present it to somebody else, they have to present it to somebody, and like by the time it gets to the top, who even knows that like you were the one who designed it? Like if the information isn't relayed, like, and that sucks. And I think that is probably a thing that happens.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's funny. But that was a huge experience. I remember just like the prep for it, having ideas of what I would want to do around the release, and then, you know, hearing about their capabilities. And I think that, you know, for somebody growing up playing sports, right, you would always see shoe collaborations, and it was kind of like the coolest thing, right? Like when you got like Michael Jordan, and like basketball shoes, or, you know, as in like the sports world, it was always like looking at you know, LeBron with Nike, and you look up to that, and you never really think like, oh, you know, like what would it be like to have a shoe collaboration? Or you do dream of it, but it's always kind of like, you know, either a pipe dream or you're just like in fantasy land. And then to see it kind of come around full circle like that, and be sitting there, and it was like, well, holy cow, you know, I mean, it means the world to me. And just taking in a lot of the meetings, I was just taking in everything around me and just listening to them talk, and listening to what they thought we could do. And I don't know.
Yeah, and I think the coolest part, at least for me, one of the coolest parts about it was that everybody who we talked to was extremely receptive to like new ideas, and, you know, they understood that like people may not understand exactly what, you know, this is going to be like. They might not be as tapped into, you know, the shoe scene or like the fashion scene or whatever that we may be, but like they're like, oh, this is cool. They have a cool brand. Like, let's at least experiment and come up with some concepts and ideas and see where it can take us. which I didn't know like how it was going to go. It could have been very like corporate where it's, these are tight, like tough guidelines that you have to do. But no, it was very free flow, very cool. Got to see a ton of like archives, and it was more like, it was almost like a field trip. It was so fun. Like, it was wild.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things that I was kind of harping on while I was there to people is, like, I want to be extremely hands-on in the storytelling process and how we're going to document the whole thing, and because I think like the process has always been so important to me that I would hate to miss being able to document, the different processes of what we're going to go through. I mean, for some of the performance stuff, like our shoe wouldn't come out till like 2024. That's 2 years away of like stuff we'll have going back and forth between design and, ideas and testing and everything.
Yeah.
So I think it would just be super cool to peel back the curtain for not only the consumer, just by like the everyday person to see, well, what would this process even be like? Because I mean, unless I just haven't seen it, I've never seen it done where you're really getting a look into a shoe collaboration or just, a smaller brand collaborating with a bigger brand like that. Yeah, it was also the first trip that Minted New York took as a team, which was cool.
Which is cool, and it was like, it went seamlessly. Like, I don't know, I just think all three of us, Clay, Arks, and I, like, we just got along. We all kind of enjoy the same things. We went to the gym together. We ate all of our meals together. Like, it was just fun.
Ran together.
Yeah, like, we ran together. Like, Clay's now a runner.
Pretty much that trip, he decided to become a runner.
Yeah. We talked so much about running. I think he was like, what, I got to get into it. So he's on his running arc. But it was very, very cool, at least for me, seeing that like Marcus, started that brand and started this brand, and here we are, and I don't know.
Who knows what'll come next? Speaking of running, like I said, we're training for the marathon. 9 weeks in we're following an 18-week plan. It is in a specific book, Advanced Marathoning by Pete Fitzinger. We are following the 70 mile per week plan. So 70 miles per week, 18 weeks leading up to the race.
Well, it would be like not 70 miles per week. It like builds up to max 70 miles per week. Yeah.
I think it starts at 54?
Yeah, something.
Because we base built to 55 miles per week, or to kind of like 60 miles per week, leading into the training, knowing that we wanted to try to avoid any overuse injuries.
Which I think is what happened during the New York City half.
Yeah.
I think like we base built to like 40, and then we kind of jumped mileage pretty crazy. And then like I was injured like 3 separate times during that whole training block, and it was nothing compared to this. I just think we learned a lot, and we're doing it.
Yeah, I feel that with the training for the New York City half, it went pretty well. But I mean, yeah, you were injured a lot. I was injured a lot. I feel like every single week it was something else. Like it started with my hip, and then it was my hamstring, and then like my glute got messed up. Then I had like weird shin and calf pain, and it never really kept me down for more than 2 days. But missing 2 days of running is not ideal. I mean, especially when you're now training for your first ever marathon. Like, you pretty much want to have every training day under your belt, which I knock on wood, I have so far, 9 weeks in. I think it's a product of us going about base building better.
Yeah. And like to give some background, I don't know if you, like, I know it was a goal of yours to run like the New York City Marathon. I was under, like my plan was to do the New York City half. I hit my goal, and then I was like, okay, I'll sign up for the lottery for the New York City Marathon, and what are the odds I actually get in? And then I got in through the lottery, which means I also got in through the lottery for the half. So then I was just like, I really wasn't in the mood to like do a marathon. I thought I was going to do a few more halves, but then I was kind of thrown into it. I think Marcus was more inclined to do it.
when I first started running, like back when I was running 2 miles a day before lifting, and then like a long run was considered 6 miles on a Sunday, I had in my head that I wanted to run New York City fast enough to qualify for Boston, and that was going to be my peak of running. Like then it was like, okay, I could never run again if I wanted to, but we all know how that goes. But I didn't think it was going to be this year's New York City marathon. It did. I mean, I was under the same impression of Shawn that we were going to get a few more half marathons under our belt, maybe some shorter races, like more 10 miles and maybe even like a 10K, 5K, just try to get faster.
I feel like I almost forced your hand because
Yeah,
like if we
you
both
got
didn't
in.
get in through the lottery, I think we would have just done a few shorter races and then like tried again to get into like Chicago or like New York next year.
Yeah.
But like if one of us got in, like it was pretty obvious that we were going to train together and like the other one was going to go in and do it through.
I mean,
like, charity.
also, I didn't want New York City to be my first marathon. I signed up for the Chicago lottery for that reason. I wanted to get into Chicago, have that be my first marathon because it's a flat course, and then do New York City and try to qualify for Boston. There was no part of me that wanted New York City to be my first experience with the marathon because of all the stuff I had read about the difficulty of the course, how it's not a PR course, and how the bridges and the hills are kind of just a pain in the ass to deal with and slow you down.
Yeah. I didn't really know anything about the New York City Marathon. And then now that I've been doing research and like reading race reports from people who have run it and who have also run other marathons, other majors, I'm like, geez, what did I get myself into? Because, you know, they always say you can only qualify for Boston on your first marathon once, which is kind of like a goal of mine. And it's like, well, I didn't really set myself up for much success by doing like one of the harder marathons, but it'll be more satisfying if I do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a better story if you do because, you know, live in New York City Marathon, you know, such a history marathon, and like it's just crazy. If you've never been in New York City for the marathon and you're a runner, you should try to at least see it, if not run it, because the vibes and energy from the city is insane, right? Like a lot of roads are closed down. A lot of people are out. It's like a fall morning. It's like crisp air. People are lining up the course, you know. And Shawn and I, we saw the elites finish last year. We were right down, I think, by like the last half mile or maybe even the last quarter mile. And to see like the energy from the crowd and how fast those people were. I mean, we hadn't even run our fastest half marathon at that point. I remember thinking like, holy shit, these people are flying.
Yeah, I do remember thinking like, God, I wish I was out there. Like everybody is cheering and like obviously it's the end, so people are probably cheering more. But like from what I've read, like there's a good amount of crowd throughout the race. Which is good and bad because I don't want to, you know, get my adrenaline going and then screw myself. But yeah, so I'm excited. I'm excited to be a part of it and at least say I did it.
Yeah. And then so currently 9 weeks into training, it's hard. Like I mean, you can't even really say any other way. That one, it's our first time ever pushing 70 miles per week, and two, it's our first time running doubles, morning and night runs. It's our first time having, like we had today, 15 miles on a Wednesday morning, right? And then on top of it all, we do try to lift 5 times a week, right? So it's, I mean, the physical toll is crazy, right? I'm pretty worn by the end of every single day. But so far, I think training has been extremely productive. And I say that, but I don't know if I'm getting any faster.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like you're just running so much and, you know, you're running every day on tired legs. Like you're never pretty much like fully recovered until you do the marathon, I hope, because they taper you. But like you're just full-fledged, like, oh, 15 miles and tomorrow, like, we don't get a rest day. We'll have to go run, and then the next day, and then it's just running every day. Mondays are off. I don't know. It's taken a big toll on my body, but not, I don't think, in a bad way. Just in like a very, like, I do get fatigued by the end of the day. I'm just like, God, I just want to like sit down and just
Especially
be
the
a
weekends.
vegetable.
Yeah. I mean, Sean and I on the weekends, like, Saturday, our mileage isn't anything really crazy. Sometimes we have some speed work, generally like 5 to 7 miles. So Saturday's not as bad, but Sundays, when we're coming off of 20, 21 miles, all I want to do is sit down and just relax and not really do anything outside of try to recover and to eat and just enjoy the rest of the weekend. But I will say that, we've had 2 marathon paced runs up until this point. We have one coming up this weekend on Sunday. Not looking forward to it. And I've failed both. Failed meaning that I've completed the mileage, but I haven't completed at the marathon pace. And Sean has his own story, but I didn't have any idea going into this how much humidity and heat affects not only your heart rate, but how like the intensity of the work that you're doing and your paces. I had actually no idea. Obviously you assume, and we played sports in college, like hot days, you sweat more, you're a little bit more tired. But when it comes to running and hitting certain paces, it's like, if you're over a certain humidity and you're over a certain temperature and you get out a late start and you're in the sun, good luck. I don't know if you're not going to hit your pace. Like it's extremely hard, especially on super long distances.
The coolest thing about this is like I feel more in tune with my body and like knowing exactly like I could push it this day and like. But there's other days where it's like, this isn't happening. Like the heat, humidity, it's just not happening. And so I totally failed one of my marathon base runs, which is I had 18 and I only did 10 miles. Like it had to have been one of the hottest days we ran.
Brutally
and
hot.
Also humid. And we got a late start. And, I wasn't that upset about it. Like it sucks. But like that was my only failed run where I didn't complete the mileage. The other time I completed the mileage and just didn't hit my paces. I don't know, it was kind of easy to shake off because I'm like, okay, really? Like as soon as I got home and I was panicking and I was like, oh, I'm not prepared for this marathon and started doing Google searches. And then I'm like, what does weather have to do with blah, 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 blah. And then you realize quickly that it's like, God, like if your dew point is over this, humidity over this, add that up with the temperature, and then you get this scale. And I'm like, okay, well, I did myself a huge disservice by getting a late start, and like the circumstances just weren't great. Also, I guess you could say that's an excuse, but I really, really don't think I would have ever hit my marathon paces. I probably could have finished the mileage, but that's okay.
To go back to the whole like sleeping thing, getting run down, like most people, you can sleep in on the weekends. If we sleep in, our training is so screwed because then the sun's up. So like on our long runs on Sunday, we try to get out, and get started running 5:50, 6 a.m. And so it's like, okay, well, if you want to get your 8 hours of sleep and recover, you got to go to bed at a reasonable time Saturday night, or else you run the risk of either getting a late start or not getting good enough sleep and feeling like shit in the morning. That's just one of the sacrifices that you have to make if you're going to try to push yourself and push your body like to its kind of red line and have it operate at a high level. And the other thing is like going in and on the entire time of training for the half marathons as well as the actual race itself, like I never fueled. I never used water. I never used gels, nothing. So learning to fuel for these longer runs, kind of like anything 15 miles and over, carrying a bottle and having electrolytes in it and or salt tabs in it, has been something that we've been experimenting with and trying to learn what's going to work best for our bodies. Like, I think, for Shawn specifically,
Well, we did that test, which was actually the VO2, which it showed that I use my carbohydrates faster than
Yeah.
you use your carbohydrates, which
Yeah.
means I resort to my fat, the fat in my body quicker. So I need more carbs than technically like you do. I think that's how
which
I
is why
interpreted
you
it.
rely on the gels more than me.
Yeah.
Like this morning, Shawn brought out gels for a 15 miler, and all I did was bring out a bottle with some salt tab in it,
Yeah.
like some electrolyte. So like Shawn, I don't even think you brought water.
I didn't. It would have been nice to have, but
You walked out without it, and I was like, "What the hell is this?"
I
guy
had
doing?
I took one gel because my problem is not necessarily that I'm dying of thirst. It's like my body's like, okay, I need something to like give me a jolt of energy, or like my legs are not working. Like carbs, I think that's what I need.
Yeah, I mean, and even just like the discrepancies in different gel brands. Some make me cramp, some don't. So it's
taste
like
terrible.
Yeah, I mean, so it's just like, okay, well, let's refine all of this now so that on race day we're not scrambling and trying new things. And on top of it, like, it's kind of crazy the boost that it brings back to my legs when I do properly fuel during the run. The gel, like I'll be going from hurting and legs pretty tired to I'll get a 2.5, 3 miles of good juice back, good soup. Good juice back from taking a gel, or honestly a small sip of electrolytes with dextrose or carbs in it will bring my legs back pretty quick.
Yeah.
Pretty quick.
And you even noticed that when you took a sip of Gatorade or whatever at the race.
Yeah, well, okay, well that I was gonna talk. I don't even know if I was gonna talk about that, but so in the half marathon, I didn't stop, but I grabbed Gatorade unknowingly twice at the water stations. And I'm telling you that it's the little Gatorade cups, the little green ones. I took tiniest sip, but I could feel it bring back juice to my legs, and I was like, okay, that's weird. So we had the Cherry Blossom 10-mile race a couple weeks later, and I told Shawn, I was like, I'm going to take the Gatorade. I'm telling you it does something. And so I would take a little bit bigger of a sip. And I mean, it was a noticeable difference. So that was kind of my introduction to fueling. Had literally no idea how much better it made me feel and how much juice it brought back to my legs. But now, yeah, I mean, it's like if I'm going to push for a hard run, I'm generally anything over 15 miles, I'm going to bring juice.
Yeah. Which is also, you have to figure out, like, we aren't going to be running with a water bottle during the marathon. So, like, figuring out how to get those cups. And, like, I don't know how to drink from a cup on the run. Like, and the last thing I want to do is, like, choke and mess up my heart rate. So, like, all things to consider and all small things, but all part of the process. And I don't know, it's been fun. It's been fun to, like, figure all that stuff out. And, like, I've learned so much about running. It's kind of crazy just because, you're kind of just engulfed in it.
Yeah. I mean, I took a Gatorade cup coming up the FDR in the half marathon and went to drink water and inhaled it like straight down my windpipe. I don't know what happened, but I was choking for like 30 steps. And I remember looking down at my watch. My heart rate was like had spiked up. Couldn't breathe. Felt like shit. I was like, oh my God. So I'm going to have to, Shawn and I are going to have to practice. I'm going to have to like run around, jog, put a little table out with some cups, run by, drink it, try to figure out like how to hit it in stride. I was reading you're supposed to like pinch the top of the cup and like slurp it down. So I don't know. Who God knows. I'll probably still end up choking, but
Yeah.
whatever.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, that's an hour-long episode. It's kind of fun to get back on the microphone.
Yeah.
We've been putting it off kind of just because we had a lot going on.
I was a little nervous in the beginning.
If you, depending on what platform you're listening on, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you do listen. If you could just either leave us a comment or a review or whatever, if you enjoyed it, it'd obviously mean a lot. It does help with like algorithm purposes, and YouTube specifically. I do read through the comments and I do answer the comments. I also like hearing the feedback from you all. So if there's something you didn't like, if there's something you did like, if you want us to go into more detail on a certain subject, leave a comment there. And yeah, I'll read it. I'll probably respond by comment, and then we can either touch on it or try to fix it and try to improve as much as possible. It's all about improving. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all. Have a great day whenever you're listening to this.
Cheers.